What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel, and our 2023 college football predictions continue for the 2023 college football season. Up next are the Arizona Wildcats, a team coming off a really solid season in 2022. They went 5-7 last year in 2022. This was my prediction last year. I had Arizona going 5-7, just missing out on a bowl game, but this is exactly what they did. They went 5-7 a year ago, so Arizona just missing out on a bowl game for 2022. My thoughts on this team in 2023, I think they're going to be pretty good. I think offensively, you look at the roster, they bring back 72% of that production back from last year's offense. Defensively is kind of what I'm concerned about for Arizona. They only return about 42% on that defensive side of the football, so the defense is going to be pretty young this year, but this is an Arizona football team. I think that's heading in the right direction. If they can have a really good season, they're definitely right there in the middle of the Pac-12 next year. So, but looking at the schedule this year for Arizona, they do play Northern Arizona, Mississippi State on the road, and UTEP in the non-conference. And you look at their Pac-12 schedule, they'll play Washington, USC on there. They'll also play Oregon State. You look at the schedule, no Oregon on the schedule. That's the good news there. But you do have to play some other tough teams here on this schedule in the Pac-12. But I think Arizona has what it takes to be a competitive team this year. Let's go game by game now and give you an official prediction for this Arizona's team. So they start things off here with Northern Arizona on September the 2nd. This should be a pretty easy win here for Arizona. I could probably see them scoring about 30 points in this game, perhaps with their offense. And I think that offense gets off to a pretty good start with a win over Northern Arizona. And I got Arizona starting out 1-0 in 2023. Then they'll play Mississippi State on the road here on September the 9th. This is a rematch from last year's matchup. You look at last year's game. Arizona, gave Mississippi State a little bit of a scare, but I think Mississippi State was just a better overall team. I think Arizona was better than their record, which suggests last year, but this is a Mississippi State team that's kind of in a rebuild mode. I mean, it's not really like a rebuild mode. They're just going to have a new head coach, and obviously the new coaching staff is going to be the big story, but you got Will Rogers coming back at quarterback for Mississippi State. I think this will be an offensive shootout type game. I think defenses will probably both struggle in this one, but I think Mississippi State, with it being on the road and the cowbells that Arizona has to deal with, I think Mississippi State's going to win this one pretty close, and I think Mississippi State does knock off Arizona here and give them their first loss of the season here. So that puts their record at 1-1. Then they'll take care of business against UTEP here and improve their record to 2-1 here on September the 16th. Then they'll open up Pac-12 play on the road at Stanford, and this is a Stanford team that, a lot of people are picking to be the worst team in the Pac-12, and I totally agree with that. This is going to be a young Stanford team and also a kind of a rebuild mode for this Stanford team. And I think with it being on the road, it won't be a really tough task for Arizona. I know it's on the road and all. Stanford is probably good at home sometimes, but I just think with the young, talent that Stanford has, it's just going to be too much for, Stanford to handle against this Arizona offense. And I think Arizona does get a win on the road at Stanford here. Like I said, I don't see Stanford being, really good this year, and obviously probably one of the worst Pac-12 teams heading into the season this year. Then they'll play Washington at home on September the 30th, and Washington's a team that has a lot of production coming back, but I think Arizona will compete in this game. I think they'll probably compete for the first half, but second half defensively, Arizona starts to kind of, really slow down a little bit on the fatigue level of Washington's offense. I think Michael Penix will have a better second half performance, and I think that's what wins Washington the game here. So I think Washington is the better team here, and I think Washington obviously will be right there in the top two of the Pac-12 this year. So I got Washington winning this one, and that puts Arizona's record at 3-2. Then they'll play USC on the road on October 7th, and USC obviously got Caleb Williams coming back. They always brought in some transfers to help them out as well, like they did last year. And this is going to be a really hard game, difficult game on the road at USC for Arizona. I just don't see the Wildcats going on the road and upsetting the Trojans. It would really shock me if they did that, though, but I just don't see Arizona competing in this game. So I think this is a game where Arizona will get blown out in this one. Plus, it's on the road. It's a tough place to play at USC. So I'm going to go with Arizona to lose here against USC on the road. Then they play Washington State on the road on October 14th. So you got back-to-back road games here with USC and Washington State. These are tough back-to-back road games. I mean, obviously, Washington State, I think, is going to be a lot improved from where they were last year. I think this is going to be a competitive Washington State team. I think they're right there as a dark horse contender in the Pac-12, behind, all those top teams in the Pac-12 as well. Arizona, though, I think will compete in this game. I think this game goes into a shootout here. End of the day, though, it came down to home field advantage here for the Washington State Cougars. And with that being said, I like Washington State here in a close one over Arizona. It's kind of an even matchup, but I think defensively the fatigue starts to settle in for Arizona's defense. And I think Washington State will win a close one here against Arizona, and they get a bye week before playing Oregon State at home on October 28th. I think Arizona has a pretty good shot here to beat Oregon State here at home. You got Oregon State, definitely a team that's going to be really good on the offensive side of the football. Defensively, they look pretty strong on that side of the football as well, but maybe not the same defense as they were last year. This will be an interesting matchup here between these two teams. I think it's another one of those shootout type ball games here. Arizona gets this game at home, and they definitely have the bye week to help them out, but I don't think it will be quite enough to go up against that Oregon State offense. I think Arizona slows down defensively, and I think Oregon State does escape here with a win over Arizona, and I got Arizona losing at home to Oregon State here. I think the bye week helps them out competing in this game, but I think Arizona will come up short of an upset win here, so that puts Arizona's record at 3-5. Then they get to the month of November. They'll play UCLA at home on November the 4th. We saw last year Arizona defeating UCLA on the road. Could that be the case this year? Could the UCLA defeat Arizona this time on the road? This will be a pretty interesting matchup, shootout type ball game. UCLA is probably not going to be the same team as they were from a year ago, but I think this is still a good UCLA team. I really don't see them really struggling this year, but this is a team that, really has had some problems with Arizona in the past, and it's just definitely one of those upset alert type games if UCLA was ranked in the top 25 by this point. And with that being said, I did pick Arizona to beat UCLA in my UCLA football prediction video, so I'm still going to pick it. I'm going to go with Arizona to knock off UCLA and beat them for the second straight year in a row. That puts Arizona's record at 4-5. Then they'll play Colorado on the road on November the 11th. Big game here between the Buffaloes and the Wildcats. I think both of these teams are not pretty similar. Colorado, though, is a team that you probably don't want to play in the month of November. I think this team is going to be better by this time. And I did Colorado's prediction like a couple weeks ago, and I think I did pick Colorado to win this game. And yes, I did. I did pick Colorado to win this game. I still like my pick here. I think this game is going to go into a defensive battle. I think Colorado's defense is probably better by this time. They're getting used to the new coaching staff and everything. So I think Arizona will lose a close defensive battle on the road here at Colorado. But it will be a close game. I think Arizona will have an opportunity to win that game, but I just think it won't be enough to handle the crowd here. I think Colorado's crowd will be fired up as well for this game. Then they'll play Utah at home the next week here on November 18th. Utah's got a stacked roster coming back this year. They brought in some transfers to help them out. Cam Rising, definitely the biggest return for this Utah team, but Arizona's at home in this game. You kind of expect them to compete in this one, and I think they do. But, I think in the second half, it's kind of similar to the Washington game. I think second half, Utah will pull away, and I think Utah just has way too much talent on their roster for Arizona to handle. So I think Arizona will lose a close one to Utah here. I think Utah escapes with the win here on the road at Arizona. And I got Arizona now falling to 4-7, so that means they'll miss out on the bowl game, but then they'll play Arizona State here to end things out on the road on November 25th. And this is a rival game. You never know what can happen between these two teams. We saw what last year's matchup was all about. It was a close game. Arizona came out with the victory. Arizona State's kind of similar to Stanford. I just don't really see this team being all that good. They're kind of in a rebuild mode, but they brought in some transfers to help them out. This game is going to be pretty interesting. Arizona, though, has, I think, the talent advantage in this game. Defensively, both of these teams are pretty even as well. Shootout-type ball game here in this one. I think, though, with Arizona's offense, I think offensively I like Arizona a lot better than Arizona State's offense. So with that being said, I think in a close game, I think Arizona knocks off Arizona State here on the road on November 25th. So I got them winning the rival game against Arizona State, and I got Arizona finishing with a record of 5-7 for 2023. I think that's a fair prediction for Arizona. You look at the teams that they're playing here on this schedule. I mean, they're pretty tough. You know, Washington at home, USC on the road, Washington State on the road. Colorado will be pretty interesting. If they win that game, they're definitely going to go to a bowl game. But let's say if they beat Mississippi State on the road, this team could probably go 7-5. I think that would be probably their best case scenario, probably their best case scenario. But best case scenario would probably be 6-6. Worst case scenario would probably be 4-8 for this team. I think it would be really disappointing if this Arizona State or Arizona team went 4-8, because this is a team that's coming off a 5-7 season. But if they make it to a bowl game this year, this team is definitely heading in the right direction. But that's my prediction for the Arizona Wildcats is 5-7 for 2023. Let me guys know what you think about Arizona. What do you think their record is for 2023? And stay tuned here for more sports content videos on my Lucas Ross Sports Channel.